Verses 61 through 80 of In Memoriam A.H.H. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Klett. In Memoriam A.H.H. by Alfred, Lord Tennyson. Verses 61 through 80. 61. If in thy second state sublime thy ransomed reason change replies with all the circle of the wise, the perfect flower of human time, and if thou cast thine eyes below, how dimly charactered and slight, how dwarfed a growth of cold and night, how blanched with darkness must I grow! Yet turn thee to the doubtful shore, where thy first form was made a man. I loved thee, spirit, and love, nor can the soul of Shakespeare love thee more. 62. Though if an eye that's downward cast could make thee somewhat blench or fail, then be my love an idle tale, and fading legend of the past. And thou as one that once declined, when he was little more than boy, on some unworthy heart with joy, but lives to wed an equal mind, and breathes a novel world, the while his other passion wholly dies, or in the light of deeper eyes is matter for a flying smile. 63. Yet pity for a horse o'erdriven, and love in which my hound has part, can hang no weight upon my heart in its assumptions up to heaven. And I am so much more than these, as thou, perchance, art more than I, and yet I spare them sympathy, and I would set their pains at ease. So mayest thou watch me where I weep, as, unto vaster motions bound, the circuits of thine orbit round a higher height, a deeper deep. 64. Dost thou look back on what hath been, as some divinely gifted man, whose life in low estate began and on a simple village green, who breaks his birth's invidious bar, and grasps the skirts of happy chance, and breasts the blows of circumstance, and grapples with his evil star, who makes by force his merit known, and lives to clutch the golden keys, to mould a mighty state's decrees, and shape the whisper of the throne, and moving up from high to higher, becomes on fortune's crowning slope the pillar of a people's hope, the centre of a world's desire, yet feels, as in a pensive dream, when all his active powers are still, a distant dearness in the hill, a secret sweetness in the stream, the limit of his narrower fate, while yet beside its vocal springs he played at counsellors and kings with one that was his earliest mate, who ploughs with pain his native lea, and reaps the labour of his hands, or in the furrow musing stands, does my old friend remember me? 65. Sweet soul, do with me as thou wilt. I lull a fancy trouble-tossed with loves too precious to be lost, a little grain shall not be spilt. And in that solace can I sing, till out of painful phases wrought there flutters up a happy thought, self-balanced on a lightsome wing. Since we deserved the name of friends, and thine effect so lives in me, a part of mine may live in thee, and move thee on to noble ends. 66. You thought my heart too far diseased. You wonder when my fancies play to find me gay among the gay, like one with any trifle pleased. The shade by which my life was crossed, which makes a desert in the mind, has made me kindly with my kind, and like to him whose sight is lost, whose feet are guided through the land, whose jest among his friends is free, who takes the children on his knee, and winds their curls about his hand. He plays with threads, he beats his chair for pastime, dreaming of the sky. His inner day can never die, his night of loss is always there. 67. When on my bed the moonlight falls, I know that in thy place of rest, by that broad water of the west, there comes a glory on the walls. Thy marble bright in dark appears, as slowly steals a silver flame along the letters of thy name, and o'er the number of thy years. The mystic glory swims away, from off my bed the moonlight dies, and closing eves of wearied eyes, I sleep till dusk is dipped in grey. And then I know the mist is drawn, a lucid veil from coast to coast, and in the dark church like a ghost, thy tablet glimmers to the dawn. 68. When in the down I sink my head, sleep, death's twin brother, times my breath. Sleep, death's twin brother, knows not death, nor can I dream of thee as dead. I walk as ere I walked forlorn, when all our path was fresh with dew, and all the bugle breezes blew reveille to the breaking morn. But what is this? I turn about, I find a trouble in thine eye, which makes me sad, I know not why, nor can my dream resolve the doubt. But ere the lark hath left the lea, I wake, and I discern the truth. It is the trouble of my youth that foolish sleep transfers to thee. 69. I dreamed there would be spring no more, that nature's ancient power was lost. The streets were black with smoke and frost, they chattered trifles at the door. I wandered from the noisy town, I found a wood with thorny boughs. I took the thorns to bind my brows, I wore them like a civic crown. I met with scoffs, I met with scorns, from youth and babe and hoary hares. They called me in the public squares the fool that wears a crown of thorns. They called me fool, they called me child. I found an angel of the night. The voice was low, the look was bright. He looked upon my crown and smiled. He reached the glory of a hand that seemed to touch it into leaf. The voice was not the voice of grief. The words were hard to understand. 70. I cannot see the features right, when on the gloom I strive to paint the face I know. The hues are faint, and mix with hollow masks of night. Cloud towers by ghostly masons wrought, a gulf that ever shuts and gapes, a hand that points, and pallid shapes in shadowy thoroughfares of thought, and crowds that stream from yawning doors, and shoals of puckered faces drive, dark bulks that tumble half alive, and lazy lengths on boundless shores, till all at once beyond the will I hear a wizard music roll, and through a lattice on the soul looks thy fair face and makes it still. 71. Sleep, kinsman thou to death and trance and madness, thou hast forged at last a night-long present of the past in which we went through summer France. Hadst thou such credit with the soul? Then bring an opiate trebly strong, drug down the blindfold sense of wrong, that so my pleasure may be whole. While now we talk as once we talked, of men and minds, the dust of change, the days that grow to something strange, in walking as of old we walked, beside the river's wooded reach, the fortress and the mountain ridge, the cataract flashing from the bridge, the breaker breaking on the beach. 72. Risest thou thus, dim dawn, again, and howlest, issuing out of night, with blasts that blow the poplar white and lash with storm the streaming pane? Day, when my crowned estate begun to pine in that reverse of doom, which sickened every living bloom, and blurred the splendour of the sun. Who usherest in the dolorous hour with thy quick tears that make the rose pull sideways, and the daisy close her crimson fringes to the shower. Who mightst have heaved a windless flame up the deep east, or, whispering, played a chequer-work of beam and shade along the hills, yet looked the same. As wan, as chill, as wild as now, day marked as with some hideous crime, when the dark hand struck down through time and cancelled nature's best. But thou, lift as thou mayst thy burdened brows through clouds that drench the morning star, and whirl the ungarnered sheaf afar, and sow the sky with flying boughs, and up thy vault with roaring sound climb thy thick noon, disastrous day, touch thy dull goal of joyless grey, and hide thy shame beneath the ground. 73. So many worlds, so much to do, so little done, such things to be, how know I what had need of thee, for thou wert strong as thou wert true. The fame is quenched that I foresaw, the head hath missed an earthly wreath. I curse not nature, no, nor death, for nothing is that errs from law. We pass. The path that each man trod is dim, or will be dim, with weeds. What fame is left for human deeds in endless age? It rests with God. O hollow wraith of dying fame, fade wholly, while the soul exults, and self enfolds the large results of force that would have forged a name. 74. As sometimes in a dead man's face, to those that watch it more and more, a likeness, hardly seen before, comes out to some one of his race. So, dearest, now thy brows are cold, I see thee what thou art, and know thy likeness to the wise below, thy kindred with the great of old. But there is more than I can see, and what I see I leave unsaid, nor speak it, knowing death has made his darkness beautiful with thee. 75. I leave thy praises unexpressed in verse that brings my self-relief, and by the measure of my grief I leave thy greatness to be guessed. What practice, howsoe'er expert in fitting aptest words to things, or voice the richest tone that sings, hath power to give thee as thou wert? I care not in these fading days to raise a cry that lasts not long, and round thee with the breeze of song to stir a little dust of praise. Thy leaf has perished in the green, and, while we breathe beneath the sun, the world which credits what is done is cold to all that might have been. So here shall silence guard thy fame, but somewhere, out of human view, whate'er thy hands are set to do, is wrought with tumult of acclaim. 76. Take wings of fancy, and ascend, and in a moment set thy face where all the starry heavens of space are sharpened to a needle's end. Take wings of foresight, lighten through the secular abyss to come, and lo, thy deepest lays are dumb before the mouldering of a yew. And if the matin songs that woke the darkness of our planet last, thine own shall wither in the vast ere half the lifetime of an oak. Ere these have clothed their branchy bowers with 50 Mays, thy songs are vain. And what are they when these remain the ruined shells of hollow towers? 77. What hope is here for modern rhyme to him who turns a musing eye on songs and deeds and lives that lie foreshortened in the tract of time? These mortal lullabies of pain may bind a book, may line a box, may serve to curl a maiden's locks, Or when 1,000 moons shall wane, a man upon a stall may find, and passing, turn the page that tells a grief, then change to something else, sung by a long forgotten mind. But what of that? My darkened ways shall ring with music all the same. To breathe my loss is more than fame, to utter love more sweet than praise. 78. Again at Christmas did we weave the holly round the Christmas hearth. The silent snow possessed the earth, and calmly fell our Christmas Eve. The Yule clogs sparkled keen with frost. No wing of wind the region swept, but over all things brooding slept the quiet sense of something lost. As in the winters left behind, again our ancient games had place, the mimic pictures breathing grace, and dance and song and hoodman blind. Who showed a token of distress? No single tear, no mark of pain. O sorrow, then can sorrow wane? O grief, can grief be changed to less? O last regret, regret can die. No, mixed with all this mystic frame her deep relations are the same, but with long use her tears are dry. 79. More than my brothers are to me. Let this not vex thee, noble heart. I know thee of what force thou art to hold the costliest love in fee. But thou and I are one in kind, as moulded like in nature's mint, and hill and wood and field did print the same sweet forms in either mind. For us the same cold streamlet curled through all his eddying coves, the same all winds that roam the twilight came in whispers of the beauteous world. At one dear knee we proffered vows, one lesson from one book we learned, ere childhood's flaxen ringlet turned to black and brown on kindred brows. And so my wealth resembles thine, but he was rich where I was poor, and he supplied my want the more as his unlikeness fitted mine. 80. If any vague desire should rise, that holy death, ere Arthur died, had moved me kindly from his side, and dropped the dust on tearless eyes, then fancy shapes, as fancy can, the grief my loss in him had wrought, a grief as deep as life or thought, but stayed in peace with God and man. I make a picture in the brain, I hear the sentence that he speaks. He bears the burden of the weeks, but turns his burden into gain. His credit thus shall set me free, and influence rich to soothe and save, unused example from the grave, reach out dead hands to comfort me. End of verses 61 through 80.